that, have long-term vested interest, right? The guys like Alex are setting up things for Pulsechain. He's spending oodles and oodles of money on hardware, right? The guy is long-term. He's trying to make this thing a success
Yep.
for all of us, right? He's going to help us become validators. Super important. He's working on, like I don't want to say what he's working on, but he's working on like really useful, important stuff. And he's not really asking anything for it, because, he's already sort of taken care of in a way. He just wants to make this thing successful. The community's really got it backwards. Richard is purposefully taking a step back, letting us build this thing in a decentralized fashion. So I think that's what he would want. And I hope he's secretly proud of what we're all doing, and he should be, right? Like that's, he's created a movement. He's created a blockchain that's, really good, fun to use. Like I don't use Ethereum hardly for anything anymore. And once all this stuff exists, I really won't use it anymore, right? You know what I mean? Like it's so much more fun to use Pulsechain.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm in that boat too, sir.
Yeah.
The only thing I use for Ethereum is bridging money in and out. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. So I mean, if you didn't have to, you'd probably be pretty happy on Pulsechain. And the nice thing is, like, it's going to be really easy to find everything once you're in this community because we all kind of know each other, right? So it's like, oh, you want a liquidity fork, or you want stable coins, go check out Coast, go check out this, right? Whereas I don't know, Ethereum's like such a broad dispersed church that there's so many different protocols. You can't be an expert in all of them, and the average person in the community doesn't know about a given protocol. Whereas in our community, we all know all the major protocols pretty well. Like you're all going to become experts in PHUX and our balancer fork. You're all going to become experts in Aave. You're all going to become experts in liquidity. You're all going to become experts in GMX, right? It's going to happen, and we're going to be the smartest in a way DeFi community when it comes to this. Like we're all going to know how to do these different things. Whereas your average Ethereum guy, what do they really know? They might know one of those protocols, right? They might know how to use Uniswap. That's about it. Maybe one other, right? And they can't afford to use half those protocols on Ethereum either. Whereas you're all going to have that opportunity now. So that's a bit of what we're working on. And don't let guys argue in bad faith. Don't let guys tell you things that they themselves know can't be true, right? And then insult others or disparage their character when they point out this obvious flaw in their logic. Don't let that happen. Don't be the guy that supports those people either. If you want, the 10, the 20, the 30, the 40 X's in Pulsechain, which I think are possible, let's not worry about probabilities for a moment, but if you want that, I think you're going to need the bull market. But where you are going to see lots and lots of money made is in third-party projects. And you can already observe this with a few of them that have come out, right? They're doing pretty well. The guys that have actually tried and have actually brought something to the table, they're already basically showing pretty good returns on average, right, for these third-party projects. And there's a group of people, which are the people that make bad faith arguments out there right now, telling you to put your head in the sand and only look at the tokens they own. And anybody who does anything else with their lives is a bad person. Picking on the homeless or picking on hexagons or fudding hex or not being loyal to Richard or vampiring the community or stuff like that. They make statements like this, all of which are not logical. We're not against the hex community, Dylan. I'm pretty sure we're pretty invested in working our asses off every day to serve the hex community, right? I'm pretty sure the wallets that you can see tell you that I've got a pretty substantial position in hex. And therefore it's very logical that I would want it to do very well, right? I've got a very substantial position in Pulse and Pulsex. So obviously I want those things to do well, right? But what I don't do is I don't go and make up things and lie to people, right? And I don't lie to you guys either, right? I don't tell you things that I don't think are true, right? Because I don't think that's the right thing to do. I try not to practice bad faith. And when I approach people who disagree with me, I try to understand their logic for it. But many of you will see that some people like to disparage these people that are actually building, and you're missing out on tremendous opportunities here. I'm telling you that there's a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with me that's coming, and you're going to see a lot of it do very well. And there'll be things that are terrible that don't do well, and there'll be things that are rugs. So like you need to look at all those things together. But there are communities that are building, that I know are building, and I'm reasonably confident that they're going to deliver some product. And whether or not that product is successful or survives volatility and doesn't fail later is almost by the by, because it's likely in my opinion to trade at least for a while and do quite well and be up many X's. So I just think if you guys want to make money on Pulsechain, the opportunity is coming to you guys right now over the next few months, and you're already seeing it. How much is Hex down? Since I don't know the Pulsex sacrifice down.
Since the Pulsex sacrifice, so 30 cents
roughly.
to about 2 cents on PHEX now. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
at least in the 90s. I would say.
Yeah, and it's even worse for Pulse, right? So like that's what you want to compare it to, right? And if you look at Ethereum over the same time horizon, Ethereum's probably down roughly half, right? So I want to congratulate the guys that have been selling their PulseX bag, who got the 2.5x, right? Like that was a very good move, right? You've done very well. You should be proud of that. Not ashamed, right? You've preserved value for yourself in a big way, and Richard helped you do that. So, congratulations to those guys. I'm not really one of them, but I think those guys that did do that should really be congratulated. I think there's a lot of really great projects coming to town. The Coast guys are bringing native stable coins. I was talking to them. I'm trying to figure out ways I can help them out, because I really think we do need a native stable coin. On Pulsechain, I look at this. What's it called? Multi-chain. The bridge.
Yep. Pretty sure it's multi-chain. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as we're running all this risk on the bridge, like that's always going to be a sword of Damocles that hangs over Pulsechain. For those of you guys that don't know what a sword of Damocles is, it's basically this thing that's hanging over your head all the time and can kill you. It's an allusion to I think the Bible, but I could be wrong about that. But it's a sword of Damocles that hangs over Pulsechain. So I really want people to see the value that those guys are bringing. Now, they're extra good in the sense that they haven't even taken any of your money. So, you can be really happy with them. But they're doing something that's super important. And that's helping us, take different kinds of risk with our stables, right? Because right now, if our bridge goes, all that DAI, all that USDT, all that USDC is gone, right? And, that's a risk. I don't think people are, kind of championing these people enough. I think it's time that we change the narrative around this in the community. I think people are right to be suspect about weird teams running sacrifice projects, right? But when people are actually bringing useful products to market and making people lots of money, you should no longer begrudge them, in my opinion. Like that's just childish. That's bad faith, right? And if the people that invested in those projects do well, you shouldn't look at them with envy because your thing that you like didn't do well. You should be happy for those people that have done well, and because that's just a good human emotion to have for people that do well. Like you should actually look at them and be like, oh, that's great, they did well. That's a good emotion to have, I think, Dylan. There's criticism that these people are all vampires, they're all terrible, they're all evil, they're all destroying value for Pulsechain, when it couldn't be farther from the truth. You have nothing without people that are building for this chain. You have a ghost chain, right? All of the coolest stuff that's going to happen on Pulsechain is likely, until Richard decides to come back from hiatus, and we don't know what his plan there is. I hope he comes back someday, and I assume he will. But until then, the coolest stuff on Pulsechain is definitely going to be coming from third parties, and it's just time to start admitting that to yourself. if you're not already doing it. The biggest initial returns are going to come from these guys. So you should be happy when they do well, but you should also be greedy in a sense as well, because there's going to be opportunities for everybody here, right? Some people are bringing things that are going to be cheap, but are going to subsequently go up a lot.
What ends up happening is maybe by design, but maybe how you build any kind of community is you can have a sermon on the mount, and then the disciples go forth, and they spread whatever the message might be. So Richard has obviously done that over the years, and gathered tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of listeners, and 20, 30, 50, 100, however many content creators. So there's these faces basically that are out there, and that's leverage, right? Because the great thing that you do, one, again, for actually having a fund, a funding round, however you want to frame that funding round, but having the capital available to build these things. Most of us don't know the cost, right? Most of us in crypto don't know the cost. What does it cost to create a DEX? You've made comments countless times about it being one of the easiest things to create, right? Existing code, changing some variables, these sort of narratives. We do not know that, right? We're on the outside of being developers. Before coming into crypto, we haven't hired developers to know the actual capital cost or the liability risk, of employing someone to not build a secret backdoor, not build, some kind of way to rug both the founder, through some bit of code that the founder is not familiar with, right? So we all default, we all defer, we all have appeals to authority. And Richard did great with that, right? In 2019, what he did was he spoke in vocabulary that most of us were unfamiliar with. And that gravitas of how he presented and his gladiatorial style and his public facing really made this community come together and have faith, right? Gather faith, right? So a lot of what I heard earlier, and I'm saying these in complimentary ways, I do like us going back and forth, is you made comment countless times today about bad faith statements, bad faith. I have to push back a little bit on that. And I push back only in that I think that a lot of people that actually make that content and make those types of statements, especially when they have audience, maybe they get caught up because they have a viewer. It's like getting called out in the schoolyard, and now you've got to, basically be over enthusiastic in what you're going to say. All right. So I think that some of that gets prodded because it's being viewed, right? It doesn't mean it's right, but that's what happens, I think. And when it goes to the bad faith arguments, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in our history over as humans that people actually do because they have a faith. They have a faith. They believe in one religion. They believe in one culture. They believe in one nationality.
Okay, faith is fine. If you have faith in something, that's great.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not disputing that.
But wait,
I mentioned this earlier.
Don't cut me off on
when
my thought.
really
Don't cut me off my thought. My thought is they have, at least since 2017, 18, 19, somewhere in there, when Richard started to become a public figure, they built a faith, right? First, there was people in the room, like Kurkowski was in the room earlier, maybe he is now, that said, fuck that guy. That guy's saying stuff that's challenging my faith, right? It's in the documentary. He said, who does this guy think he is, right? Because it challenges a faith. And at the time, it might be Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum or, who is this guy, right? And that face and that, 8-hour sitting sessions, calling everybody, every name under the sun, not the most, appealing and Svengali kind of personality, still gathered a community, right? And now we have this history. We have this chart. We have the if you want to call it adoption, as far as how many people talk about a hexagon logo or get excited when Elon talks about programming code in hexadecimal, and we all associate it, right? So like we have a faith, right? And that is the religiosity that you commented on, that I comment on often, the religiosity of this stuff. Now, the challenge is, while Hex was going on, 90% of the supply was held by OA, African priest Greg the Duck. If something had gone wrong with that code, it's not that difficult to have rebooted. It's not that difficult. It's dropping the system state on a different network. It's, basically saying, hey, we shattered this community, but we're going to bring it back together. Richard could have done that, and he had an accountability to do it. Doesn't mean he ever would have. Definitely could have run off with all the money. Definitely still could dump the price forever, and all of the small liquidity in either pool would just go away, as well as this idea of a fundraise for Pulsechain and Pulsex actually materializing to anything ROI for participants, right? So these things are all still risk in the system because it does come down to individual faith, the users and the narcissist that's building these platforms. The only people that succeed to become president or lead other people are ones that believe that they can. The only ones that land on Mars or go to space are people that believe that they can, spike the landing on a rocket. Like, that's what happens, man. It's narcissism and it's faith of the users believing in that person or in that thing. We don't read code. We do not. And when it comes to Hex specifically, the OA showed a history of holding a lot of supply that could have rebooted a system that had a critical flaw in it. Could have rebooted it. When it comes to Pulsechain, similarly, most of the supply is not in our hands. It's not in the user hands. Most of it's not in the LP on these different dexes, such as yours. Yours is the second largest dex. There will be another dex. I see Hexy in the room. There'll be other dexes that basically sequester. There's rug pull dexes happening right now, right? Nobody knows who they are. They're forked, they're launched, people are putting LP in them, the money goes down, and then they just disappear, restart another website, and then they can pull more liquidity. So like faith, when you say these words like bad faith statement or, all this kind of stuff, it touches on nerves because there's some things that can happen. I'm not saying that they ever would. If there was a critical flaw because a developer or Richard oversight, I do believe faithfully, I have a faith that there could be a reboot. At the most, right now, there's about $40 million or $50 million worth of stable coins that are in the DEX on PulseX, right? That's about it. Everything else is paired with something else that Richard created, whether it's incentive token, PLS, PLSX, these other things. Ethereum, maybe it tips it over when you say half of the LP that's Ethereum paired with PLS, half with USDC and DAI and Tether. Like, there's about $50 million there. So if there's a critical flaw in the bridge, I believe that 600 million in DAI exists somewhere, and I believe that there could be a reboot because there's capital to do so, right? Maybe it doesn't ever happen. Maybe Richard comes on stream and says, hey man, so sorry, we used off-the-shelf bridge technology and there was a flaw in it and now everybody got fucked. Sorry guys. Like, that could happen. And so could he do about the design of the copy-paste fork of Ethereum. Hey man, we didn't see this thing. So sorry, it broke. You guys just lost all your money. Like, he could do a Trayvon. He could do it about Pulsex, right? And Pulsex has had some bugs that I've been super pissed about, right? But why do I need to go and break the faith? I don't need to, because if something happens with Pulsex, similarly, 90% of the supply of both PLS, PLSX, Hex, also public-facing brand, also some accountability of someone that I believe is the ultimate narcissist and egomaniac that definitely wants to win. He's in this to win. He wants to be on the tip of the tongue closer than Vitalik or Satoshi when it comes to the crypto world. So I believe in his narcissism. I have faith in that. And so I do appreciate the builders. I'm in these rooms. I host. I go on these channels like Westcott and things like that, and I highlight in my tweets, hey man, Ethereum has 81 projects that are more than $200,000 a day in trade volume that was not built by Vitalik or any of the crew that are in the foundation, as far as I know. 81 things, right? And that's the lowest tier is 200,000 per day. But all those other things, if you sort them, they're existing on a network. Hopefully, Pulsechain exceeds the purse of the DAI that was collected, that sits as stable coins, somewhere, whether or not it ever gets used, right? Maybe I consider that an insurance policy. Maybe I consider the brand forwardness of Richard as some level of insurance policy, right? Some level. And I appreciate people like yourself and Dylan that host these spaces. I think it's awesome. But I also have to say do you want, when you said something earlier, it irritated me a bit, that you're going to start calling people out because they don't push back enough on the few influencers that we have in YouTube, whether they're talking about you. I think that they were in response to your antagonism. Maybe I was wrong because I have no idea. But like, that's what I heard them saying. Oh man, just keep, if they just stay out of our like religiosity, if they don't come and preach their religion and say, hey, you're kind of being foolish, 10,000x isn't possible. Like, I don't think that when I got involved with the AAA in 2019, I wasn't thinking 10,000x. I heard it. I heard his 14,000x Ethereum example. I heard it. Sure, that'd be great. I wasn't devout and I wasn't a disciple all along the way. And then similarly, you know, when it comes to like these topping signals, I heard also, I think it was Dylan or maybe it was yourself talking about 42 days, every 42 days it doubles. There's influencers in this room that said the same stuff, right? It's not just the few, it's some of the bigger people inside of your products too, right? So like the religiosity is part of the value add on this. The religiosity. Is it foolish? Is it naive? Sure. You know, Zeus sits up in Olympus and he rules all of our lives. Like, you know, there's a lot of foolishness in religiosity, I think, right? But it also, like, part of this is I have to have faith in Richard's devs that they didn't fuck up. And obviously they did, because Pulsex has a V2, right? They obviously fucked up, right? I have to have belief that the game theory that was pitched for 2 years is going to execute. And obviously I was wrong, because the single-sided staking and the DAO narrative, whether or not it's value add or not, to pivot, to change, to throw up random tweets and kind of behave that way, pissed me off, right? So I'm not the most devout religious, you know, zealot in this ecosystem, but I certainly got a lot of capital in it. I certainly have a lot of capital in it. And I also hold most of that capital still in that system of Pulsechain, Pulsex as the core tokens, Hex, you know, Ethereum, things that are in LP farming. Like, I like that world. That's one reason why I participate on PHUX. I like your platform. I think it's got great UX, got great UI, but I also have to have some faith, because you use great vocabulary and you've been doing it for years, and you engage this community often, and you answer questions that people have about maybe your products, but about kind of your theories and experience that has played out on different cryptos or bonds or, you know, other speculative instruments. So like, I very much appreciate the founders, and I appreciate the community, and I very much appreciate people that are face forward and talking, you know, with some accountability. There's got to be I've had this conversation with you before, which is, you know, you guys are out there and you're public, and you need to call these other people, you know, when they're saying, you know, some bullshit stuff. Yeah, that's true. And so can the founders, like Hexy Bastard's out there. Other people are out there. You're out there here, pseudo-anonymous. Like, I don't think that the face video on camera stuff weighs so heavily with me as much as it used to, because I've met Alex McWhirter, and now he's in jail. With his pitch, you know, Sam Bankman-Fried, public guy in Congress pretty often, still fucked up, right? Like, there's a lot of grifters. There's a lot of rip-off artists. There's a lot of people with designed bad intention. Like, they're like, hey, if I just get enough rubes that, you know, like Applebee's to come in and spend their money, I'll make a lot of money on this thing, man. Like, there's a lot of that in this game. There's a lot of casino in this game, man. So like, the accountability element, all we have is faith. That's all we fucking have, you know? So like, the bad faith argument, you know, that's bad logic. You should have seen that coming. Like, I should have seen that, you know, there's a point where I had 2.5x multiple, right? I didn't sell all that shit. Like, I rode that fucker down too, right? So like, there's a lot of this game that is faith. It's faith. It's faith in code. It's faith that some other you know, new development isn't going to change. Some on-ramp, off-ramp isn't going to close. You know, there's a lot of faith in this. So like, I don't like that tinge a little bit on what you were saying earlier. But on the other side, when it comes to the people that actually are builders, I love spending time with KG. He's an awesome guy. He's an amazing guy. And I think he does his best to kind of get his message in front of these other influencers.
Hard worker.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's an amazing person. Amazing. I've never met his father, but I spent enough time with KG that I really, really like the guy a lot. I've only spent a little bit of time with Hexy Bastard, but I think that he's got good intentions. Will his shit, go to the moon? I don't know. I sacrificed, so I care about his product because I think he's forward facing. And one of the reasons why I want to support this diversification, just DeFi narrative is I have faith in you. I have faith that with your experience and your knowledge base and the peers, my friends that have the same credentials that you have, and I want to introduce, back and forth. I love the networking side. Is that you likely talk to people that would never touch a RH ecosystem or L1. They would never touch it, right? So you said something about whether the Aave people are going to get here. No, don't think so. What about the Curve people? Don't think so. What about the ones that are already founded GMX? Don't think so. So you're doing the good faith thing of saying, hey, I understand that this is a need in an ecosystem. I understand that there's 81 things on Ethereum that the founder didn't have anything to do with, but builders built, and finding synergy, between community and synergizing with their faith is a good thing, right? We're all in these intangibles, man. All of this stuff is faith. That's kind of my rant.